Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. And this is Sermons, Masonic from the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry by Albert G. Mackey. Sermons, Masonic. Sermons on Masonic subjects and delivered in churches before Masonic bodies or on Masonic festivals are peculiar to the British and the American Freemasons. Neither the French nor German nor indeed any continental literature of Freemasonry supplies us with any examples. The first Masonic sermon of which we have any knowledge from its publication was A General Charge to Masons, delivered at Christ Church in Boston on the 27th of December 1749 by the Reverend Charles Brockwell, Massachusetts, published at the request of the Grand Officers and Brethren there. It was, however, not printed at Boston, Massachusetts, where it was delivered, but was first published in the Freemasons' Pocket Companion for 1754. Brockwell was chaplain of the English troops stationed at Boston. But in the United States of America, at least, the custom of delivering sermons on St. John's Day prevailed many years before. In Dr. Mackey's History of Freemasonry in South Carolina, pages 15 to 20, will be found the authentic evidence that the lodges in Charleston attended divine service on December 27, 1738, and for several years after, on each of which occasions it is to be presumed that a sermon was preached. In 1742 it is distinctly stated from a contemporary gazette that both lodges proceeded regularly with the ensigns of their order and music before them to church, where they heard a very learned sermon from their brother, the Reverend Mr. Durand. The first Masonic sermon we have recorded here eloquently paid tribute to the virtues taught among the craftsmen, and after the centuries of years is stimulating reading. A copy of it by Brother Dudley Wright was reprinted in the New Age magazine, October 1924. This sermon was preached at Boston, Massachusetts by Brother Reverend Charles Brockwell, Massachusetts, one of the chaplains of King George II. The sermon is entitled Brotherly Love Recommended, and it was preached before the Ancient and Honorable Society of Free and Accepted Masons in Christ Church, Boston. It was published at the request of the Society, and on the flyleaf is the following official minute in the Grand Lodge held at the Exchange Tavern in Boston on Wednesday, the 27th of December 1749. Agreed that the thanks of the Ancient and Honorable Society be given to our brother, the Reverend Mr. Charles Brockwell, for his sermon preached this day before the said Society, and that the Right Worshipful Brother Hugh McDaniel, Brother Henry Price, and Brother Aston request a copy of the same to be printed by the Society. Charles Pelham, Secretary. The sermon is dedicated to the brethren as follows. To the Right Worshipful Thomas Oxnard, Esquire, Provincial Grand Master of North America, Mr. Hugh McDaniel, Deputy Grand Master, Mr. Benjamin Hallowell, Mr. John Box, Grand Wardens and others, the worshipful brothers and fellows of the Ancient and Honorable Society of Free and Accepted Masons. This sermon, preached and published at your request, is dedicated by their most affectionate brother and humble servant, Charles Brockwell. The text chosen was 1 Thessalonians 4:9. But as touching brotherly love, ye need not that I write unto you, for ye yourselves are taught of God to love one another. And in the course of his discourse, Brother Brockwell said, the principal intention in forming societies is undoubtedly uniting men in the stricter bonds of love. For men, considered as social creatures, must derive their happiness from each other, every man being designed by Providence to promote the good of others. The Apostle displays the necessity of brotherly love from a standpoint far more noble than that of interest. Our obligations to resemble God in this favored attribute of love should be incentives to our most earnest endeavors thereafter, should infuse our love and charity by that irresistible influence of example. I have had the honor of being a member of this ancient and honorable society for many years, have sustained many of its offices, and can and do aver in this sacred place, and before the great architect of the world, that I never could observe aught therein, but what was justifiable and commendable according to the strictest rules of society. Thus, being founded on the rules of the gospel, the doing the will of God, and the subduing our passions, are highly conducive to every sacred and social virtue. Our very constitutions furnish a sufficient argument to confute all gainsayers. For no combination of wicked men for wicked purposes ever lasted long. The want of virtue on which mutual trust and confidence is founded soon divides and breaks them to pieces. Nor would men of unquestionable wisdom, known integrity, strict honor, undoubted veracity and good sense ever continue it, as all the world may see they have done and now do, or contribute towards supporting it and propagating it to prosperity. As to any objections that have been raised against this society, they are as ridiculous as they are groundless. For what can discover more egregious folly in any man than to attempt to vilify what he knows nothing of? He might with equal justice abuse or calumniate anything else that he is unacquainted with. But there are some peculiar customs amongst us. Surely these can be liable to no censure. Has not every society some peculiarities which are not to be revealed to men of different communities? But some among us behave not so well as might be expected. We fear this is too true and are heartily sorry for it. But it might be inferred by parity of reason that the misconduct of a Christian is argument against Christianity, a conclusion which I presume no man will allow. Let us rejoice in every opportunity of serving and obliging each other, for then, and only then, are we answering the great need of our institution. Brotherly love, relief and truth oblige us not only to be compassionate and benevolent, but to demonstrate that relief and comfort which the compassion of any members requires, and we can bestow without manifest inconvenience to ourselves. The regulations of this society are calculated not only for the prevention of enmity, wrath and dissension, but for the promotion of love, peace and friendship. He who neither contrives mischief against others, nor suspects any against himself, has his mind always serene and his affections composed. All the faculties rejoice in harmony and proportion. By these our society subsists, and upon these depend its wisdom, strength and beauty. What are our secrets? If a brother in necessity seeks relief, 'tis an inviolable secret, because true charity vaunteth not itself. If an overtaken brother be admonished, 'tis in secret, because charity is kind. If possibly little differences, feuds, or animosities should invade our peaceful walls, they are still kept secret, for charity suffereth long, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. These and many more are the embellishments that emblazon the Mason's escutcheon. The occasion did not pass without an attempt to burlesque in print the Masonic celebration of the day. This was done in a peculiar poem of 1750, published at Boston, Massachusetts, with the following title: Entertainment for a Winter's Evening, being a full and true account of a very strange and wonderful sight. Seen in Boston on the 27th of December at noonday, the truth of which can be attested by a great number of people who actually saw the same with their own eyes. By me, the humble B.B. ESQ. This article bears the imprint, Boston, printed and sold by G. Rogers, next to the prison in Queen Street. The poem, published in 1750, had an introduction addressed to the reader as follows: Courteous and loving reader, I thought it necessary to acquaint thee with 3 things which thou wilt, perhaps, be inquisitive about. First, why thou hast not had the following entertainment sooner. Secondly, why it now appears abroad without sheltering itself under the name of some powerful patron. And thirdly, why I have given myself the title I have assumed in the front of it. As for the first article, thou must know that my great distance from the press, near 100 miles at this difficult season of the year, made it impossible for me to convey it there sooner. As to the second, I had fully determined to select a number of suitable patrons, but was prevented by finding all of them engaged already, not so much as one being left, under whose wings this poor sheet might retire for protection. Thirdly, the title I have taken to myself sounds, I confess, somewhat oddly, nor indeed should I have ventured upon it had I not been warranted by a famous society in an example which they have lately set me. For though this society is perhaps the only one in the world that ever gave itself those pompous epithets, yet it is allowed to be the standard of antiquity and honor. Of antiquity, as it can boast an era many years higher than that of the world. Of honor, as it is invested with that distinguishing badge which is at this day the glory of the greatest potentates on earth. And if so, I see no reason why thou and I should not submit to it as a standard of propriety too. I am, loving reader, with the greatest humility thine, the humble BBSQ, The full text of this quaint and interesting old poem follows. O Muse, renowned for storytelling, fair Clio, leave thy airy dwelling. Now, while the streams like marble stand, held fast by winter's icy hand, now, while the hills are clothed in snow, now, while the keen northwest winds blow from the bleak fields and chilling air unto the warmer hearth repair, where friends in cheerful circle meet, in social conversations sit. Come, goddess, and our ears regale with a diverting Christmas tale, O come. And in thy verse declare who were the men and what they were, and what their names, and what their fame, and what the cause for which they came. To house of God from house of ale, and how the parson told his tale, how they returned in manner odd to house of ale from house of God. Freemasons, so the story goes, have two saints for their patrons chose, and both St. John's, one the Baptist, the other the Evangelist. The Baptist had the lodge which stood whilom by Jordan's ancient flood. But for what secret cause the other has been adopted for a brother they cannot, and I will not say, nexire fas est omnia. The Masons by procession having already honoured one, thou, to perpetuate their glory, Clio, didst then relate the story. To show the world they mean fair play, and that each saint should have his day. Now ordered store of belly timber against 27th of December, for that's the day of St. John's feast. Fixed by the holy Roman priest, they then, in mode religious, chose their brother of the roll, and rose the sermon to commence. He from the sacred eminence must first explain, and then apply the duties of Freemasonry. At length in scarlet apron dressed, forth rushed the morning of the fest, and now the bells in steeple play. Hark, ding-dong bell, they chime away, until with solemn toll and steady the great bell tolls. The parson's ready, Masons at church, strange auditory. And yet we have as strange a story, for saints, as history attests, have preached to fishes, birds, and beasts, yea, stones so hard, though strange 'tis true, have sometimes been their hearers too. So good St. Francis, man of grace, himself preached to the braying race, and further, as the story passes, addressed them thus, my brother asses. Just so old British Weraburger, as ecclesiastic writers say, harangued the geese, both far and wide, just so the geese were edified. The crowds attending gaze around, and awful silence reigns profound, till from the seat which he'd sat and sew, on uprose, and thus began the parson. Right worshipful at your command obedient I and rostra stand. It proper is and fit to show unto the crowds that gape below and wonder much, and well they may, what on this occasion I can say, why in the church are met together, especially so in such cold weather, such folk as never did appear so over fond of being there. Know then, my friends, without more pother, that these are Masons. I'm a brother Masons, said I. Yes, Masons free, their deeds and title both agree. While other sects fall out and fight about a trifling mode or rite, we firm on love cemented stand. 'Tis love unites us heart and hand, love to a party not confined, a love embracing all mankind, both Catholic and Protestant, the Scots and eke New England Saint Antonio's followers, and those who've Crispin for their patron chose, and they who to their idol goose oft sacrifice the blood of louse. O pine salubrious, from thy veins distills the cure of human pains. Hail, sacred tree, to thee I owe this freedom from a world of woe. My heart, though grateful, weak my strain, to show thy worth I strive in vain. Could Thracian Orpheus but impart his tuneful lyre and matchless art, and would propitious fates decree old Nestor's length of days to me, that lyre, that art, that length of days I'd spend in sounding forth thy praise. Still thou shalt never want my blessing. But to return from this digressing, those who with razor bright and keen and careful hand, each morn are seen devoting to St. Nicholas the manly honours of the face. Him too who works our cruel deed, the fatal tough Muscovian weed, and twists the suffocating string in which devoted wretches swing. And O my gracious heaven, defend the brethren from dishonest end. Her cauldrons smoke with juice of pine, an offering to St. Catherine, Rhode Island's differing motley tribes far more than Alec. Ross describes, and light that's new and light that's old, we in our friendly arms enfold, free, generous, and unconfined to outward shape or inward mind. The high and low and great and small, FSP and short and A and tall, FNN as bulky as a house, and WD smaller than a louse. The grave and merry, dull and witty, the fair and brown, deformed and pretty, we all agree, both wet and dry, from drunken L to sober eye and hue. But hark, methinks I hear one assuredly whisper in my ear, pray, parson, don't affirm but prove. Do they all meet and part in love? Quarrels oft times don't they delight in, and now and then a little fighting? Did there not, for the secret's out? In the last lodge arise a root, M, with a fist of brass, laid T, his nose level with his face, and scarcely had he let his hand go when he received from T a D blow. Now, parson, when a nose is broken, pray, is it friendly sign or token? 'Tis true, but trifling is the objection. Off from themselves the best men very humanum inim est errare. But what I've said I'll say again, and what I say I will maintain. 'Tis love, pure love, cements the whole love of the bottle and the bowl. But 'tis nigh time to let you go where you had rather be, I know, and by proceeding I delay the weightier business of the day, for its solid sense affords, whilst nonsense lurks in many words. Doubting does oft arise from thinking, but truth is only found in drinking. Thus having said, the Reverend Vicar dismissed them to their food and liquor. From church to stones they go to eat. In order walking through the street, but no right worshipful was there, Pallas forbade him to appear. For foreseeing that the job would from all parts collect a mob, he wisely caught a cold and stayed at home, at least if not in bed. So when the Greeks 'gainst the Trojans went, Achilles tarried in his tent. Ashamed he hides himself, nor draws a conquering sword in harlot's cause. CB, K before the aproned throng, marches with sword and book along. The stately ram with courage bold, so stalks before the fleecy fold. And so the gander on the brink of river leads his geese to drink. And so the geese descend from gabbling on the dry land in stream to dabbling. 3 with their white sticks next are seen, 1 on each side and 1 between. Plump L. Lucius marches on the right, round as a hoop, as bottle tight, with face full orbed and rosy too. So ruddy Cynthia oft we view, when she from tippling eastern streams first throws about her evening beams. 'Tis he the brethren all admire, him for their steward they require. 'Tis he they view with wondering eyes, 'tis he their utmost art defies. For though with nicest skill they work all, none of 'em e'er could square his circle. Next B, R with M, 1 paces, though brothers, how unlike their faces. So limners better representing by artful contrast what they paint. Whose he comes next? 'Tis P, E by name, P, E by his nose, well known to fame. These, when the generous choose recruits, around the brighter radiance shoots. So on some promontory's height, for Neptune's sons the signal light shines fair, and bed by unctuous stream sends off to sea a livelier beam. But see the crowds, with what amaze, that on the apothecary gaze. 'Tis he, when belly suffers twitch caused by too retentive breach, adjusts with finger nice and thumb the ivory tube to patient's bum. High rising o'er the rest, with tall head and ample chest. So towering stands the tree of Jove, and proud o'erlooks the neighbouring grove. Where's honest L? Key, that cook from London, for without L, Key the lodge is undone. 'Twas he who oft dispelled their sadness, and filled the brothers' hearts with gladness. For them his ample bowls o'erflowed, his table groaned beneath its load. For them he stretched his utmost art, their honours grateful they impart ill. Key in return is made a brother as good and true as any other, and still, though broke with age and wine, preserves the token and the sign. But still I see a numerous train. Shall they, alas, unsung remain? Sage H, one of public soul and laughing, F. K, friend to the bowl, meek R, half smothered in the crowd, and R, who sings at church so loud, tall Dilla R, of Gallic city, short B, who trips along so pretty, B. D so truss with gut well fed, he to the hungry deals out bread. And 20 more crowd on my fancy, all brothers, and that's all you can say. Whene'er for aiding nature frail, poor board must follow the cart's tail. As through fair London streets she goes, the mob, like fame, by moving grows. They shouldering close, press, stink and shove, scarcely can the procession move. Just such a street-collected throng guarded the brotherhood along. Just such a noise, just such a roar, heard from behind and from before. Till lodged at stones, nor from pursued, the mob with 3 huzzas conclude. And now withdrawn from public view, what did the brethren say and do? Had I the force of Stentor's lungs, a voice of brass, 100 tongues? My tongues and voice and lungs would fail ere I had finished half my tale, ere I had told their names and nation, their virtue, arts and occupation, or in fit strains had half made known what words were spoke, what deeds were done. Clio, 'tis thou alone canst show 'em, for thou art a goddess and must know 'em. But now suppress thy further rhyme, and tell the rest another time. Once more perhaps the aproned train hereafter may invite thy strain. Then Clio, with descending wing, shall downward fly again and sing. The few following comments may be added. The Honorable B.B. Esquire is the pen name of Joseph Green, born in Boston, Massachusetts, 1706. Was a graduate of Harvard University, 1726. He became a merchant, espoused the royalist cause, was exiled, and in 1780 died in England. He had a great reputation as a wit. This epitaph was written by a friend for his tombstone long before his death. Sister, viator, stop, traveller. Here lies one whose life was whim, whose soul was pun. And if you go too near his hearse, he'll joke you both in prose and verse. See also Onderdonk's History of American Verse, pages 41, 42, and 168. Drake's History of Boston, page 629, a reprint of the poem by Sam Briggs of Cleveland, Ohio, with notes on the almanacs of Nathaniel Ames and articles by Brother R.I. Clegg in the American Freemason, particularly in November 1911. The preacher, Charles Brockwell, was assistant rector of King's Chapel. Inducted in 1747, he died in 1755. Drake gives several names of the participants which may be compared with the initials scattered through the poem. Buck, James Perkins, Johnson, Wethred, Captain Benjamin Hallowell, the builder of the ship mentioned in the article in this work, headed Clothed, Rhea, probably Mr. John Rhea, who kept in Butler's Row in 1748. He was a ship chandler, Row. John Roe was a merchant and importer, kept on Belcher's Wharf in 1744. He lived on Essex Street in 1760. The Latin phrase from Horace, 30th line of poem, means, "And to know all things is not permitted." Brother Briggs gives LWS as meaning Lewis Twiner, PE as Pew, AN for Dr. Ashton, apothecary at Boston about 1738. Died in 1776, aged 74. LK for Luke Vardy, who kept the Royal Exchange Tavern at Boston in 1733. And FK for Francis Johannot, a distiller and prominent member of the Sons of Liberty, who died in 1775. Stone's was a well-known tavern. The various saints mentioned in the text, Antonio, Crispin, Nicholas, Catherine, are the patrons of sailors, shoemakers, barbers, and rope makers. See also Clothed and Regalia. Brockwell's, however, is the first of these early sermons which has had the good fortune to be embalmed in type. But though first printed, it was not the first delivered. In 1750, John Entick, afterward the editor of an edition of Anderson's Constitutions, delivered a sermon at Walbrook, England, entitled "The Free and Accepted Mason Described." The text on this occasion was from Acts 28, 22, and had some significance in reference to the popular character of the order. But we desire to hear of thee what thou thinkest. For as concerning this sect, we know that everywhere it is spoken against. Entick preached several other sermons which were printed. From that time, both in England and the United States of America, the sermon became a very usual part of the public celebration of a Masonic festival. One preached at Newcastle upon Tyne in 1775 is in its very title a sermon of itself. The basis of Freemasonry displayed, or an attempt to show that the general principles of true religion, genuine virtue, and sound morality are the noble foundations on which this renowned society is established. Being a sermon preached in Newcastle on the festival of St. John the Evangelist, 1775, by Brother Robert Greene. In 1799, the Reverend Jethro Inwood published a volume of sermons in which are expressed and enforced the religious, moral, and political virtues of Freemasonry, preached upon several occasions before the provincial grand officers and other brethren in the counties of Kent and Essex. In 1849, Brother Spencer published an edition of this work, enriched by the valuable notes of Dr. Oliver. In 1801, the Reverend Thaddeus Mason Harris, Grand Chaplain of the Grand Lodge and Grand Chapter of Massachusetts, published at Charlestown, Massachusetts, a volume of discourses delivered on public occasions, illustrating the principles, displaying the tendency, and vindicating the design of Freemasonry. This work has also been annotated in a new edition by Dr. Oliver and republished in his Golden Remains of Early Masonic Writers. During this 19th century, there has been an abundance of single sermons preached and published, but for a long period, no other collected volume of any by one and the same author has been given to the public since those of Dr. Harris. Yet the fact that annually in Great Britain and America, hundreds of sermons in praise or in defense of Freemasonry are delivered from Christian pulpits is a valuable testimony given by the clergy to the purity of the institution. There is a famous medal in existence bearing a message of such dignity and force that it has well been called a Masonic sermon and is known by that name on the continent of Europe. A splendid specimen of this medal with its 41 beautiful lines of engraving is in the possession of Brother Thomas T. Thorpe of Leicester, England, where it was examined for the purpose of description here. This is a bronze medal representing on one side a serpent biting a file and having around the border the words La Mac, Vivre, Dieu le veut, Guntje, or de Belgique, 5838, meaning Masonry will live, God wills it. Grand Orient of Belgium, 5838. This medal was struck in consequence of an interdict pronounced against the Masonic order by the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Mechlin in December 1838, which, however, had no effect, unless to increase the prosperity of the fraternity and to revive the loyalty of those whose interest had waned. The inscription on the reverse of this medal is known as the Masonic Sermon. Here it is. Masonic conduct is to adore the grand architect of the universe. Love thy neighbor, do no evil, do good, suffer man to speak. The worship most acceptable to the grand architect of the universe consists of good morals and to the practice of all the virtues. Do good for the love of goodness itself alone. Ever keep thy soul in a state so pure as to appear worthily before the presence of the grand architect, who is God. Love the good, succor the weak, fly from the wicked, but hate no one. Speak seriously with the great, and prudently with thy equals, sincerely with thy friends, pleasantly with the little ones, tender with the poor. Do not flatter thy brother, that is treason. If thy brother flatter thee, beware that he doth not corrupt thee. Listen always to the voice of conscience. Be a father to the poor. Each sigh drawn from them by thy hard-heartedness will increase the number of maledictions which will fall upon thy head. Respect the stranger on his journey and assist him. His person is sacred to thee. Avoid quarrels, forestall insults, ever keep the right on thy side. Respect woman, never abuse her weakness, die rather than dishonor her. If the grand architect hath given thee a son, be thankful, but tremble at the trust he hath confided to thee. Be to that child the image of divinity. Until he is 10 years old, let him fear thee. Until he is 20, let him love thee, and until death let him respect thee. Until he is 10 years old, be his master. Until 20, his father, and until death, his friend. Aim to give him good principles rather than elegant manners, that he may have enlightened rectitude and not a frivolous elegance. Make of him an honest man rather than a man of dress. If thou blushes at thy condition, it is pride. Consider that it is not the position which honors or degrades thee, but the manner in which thou dost fill it. Read and profit, see and imitate, reflect and labor. Do all for the benefit of thy brethren, that is working for thyself. Be content in all places, at all times and with all things. Rejoice in justice, despise iniquity, suffer without murmuring. Judge not lightly the conduct of men, blame little and praise still less. It is for the grand architect of the universe who searches the heart to value his work. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe and comment. And if you can please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.